stop everything you're doing. What you're about to see is not a conspiracy theory. It's not a metaphor. It's real, concrete, built in the heart of the Vatican. There's a room, yes, an official room of the Pope, that at first glance looks like just another work of modern religious architecture. But when you look closely, something sinister emerges. The Paul VI Audience Hall. Outside, an elongated metal structure with strange contours. Inside, a veritable reptile sanctuary. We're not exaggerating, we're describing two side windows shaped exactly like piercing eyes. The ceiling, scales, the stage, curved like the open mouth of a snake, ready to devour whoever stands before it. All this in the heart of the Vatican. Coincidence? Answer me then, why at center stage, where there should be a cross, a sacred altar, a symbol of purity, was the most disturbing sculpture ever created in the history of the modern church placed? The Resurrection by Pericles Fazzini. But that doesn't look like a resurrection. It looks like a nuclear nightmare. Christ deformed, emerging from the chaos, as if consumed by an atomic explosion. Look closely at this image. Is this the Christ of the Bible, or something darker? Now stop and think. Why was the seat of the world's greatest religious leader designed as a serpent? Why is the central image grotesque, dark, and the complete opposite of the glorified Christ described in Scripture? You can even try to ignore it, but the symbols are there, wide open, in plain sight, and many refuse to see. Today we will explore what lies behind the walls of this place, and you will understand why many believe there is something far darker at work within the Vatican. Everyone has heard of it, but no one told you what in fact it takes place behind the temple of Lucifer. Forget everything you've been told about mythology, religion, or symbolic art. What we're about to reveal here will make you question even what you see with your own eyes. First question, why does a supposedly symbolic place carry such an obsession with serpentine figures, ritualistic geometries, and representations of the light bringer? Do you really think all this is just aesthetics? Second point, why is it that every time someone tries to find real information about this temple, everything seems obscured, distorted, or simply inaccessible? Is it a coincidence? Third question, why do names of historical figures linked to the occult repeatedly appear associated with this place? Do you still think this is religion? Or have you started to realize this is control? This video will show you 5 deep and dangerous secrets about the Temple of Lucifer. And no, these aren't things you'll find in a textbook or on Wikipedia. This is information buried beneath layers of symbolism, denial, and ritualistic manipulation. Before continuing, I want to make one thing clear. This video is not intended to stir up controversy. It's about showing you what they don't want you to see, because the truth doesn't hide in the shadows by chance. It stays there, locked, with a symbolic, ceremonial, and doctrinal lock. And before you say, this is just a conspiracy theory, answer me. Why in the 21st century are references to this temple treated with irony, fear, or complete silence? Why is there so much resistance to investigating, naming, and exposing it? Let's start with the name, Lucifer. Not the horned, trident-wielding demon that popular culture has foisted on you, but the Lucifer of ancient scriptures, the bearer of light of knowledge, the one who questions, the one who rebels against absolute authority. Why has this name become the ultimate enemy, while at the same time being venerated in closed circles of power? What lies behind this name that makes the Vatican tremble and Hollywood creates myths around it? Why is the world's most demonized symbol hidden in sacred architecture, official liturgies, and elite gatherings? Do you still think all this is a coincidence? And more, why does this temple, whose existence no one officially acknowledges, seem to directly influence royal structures, political decisions, and even contemporary rituals? We're talking about hidden power, occult influence, energetic architecture. This isn't religion. This is spiritual engineering, and if you think none of this has an impact on your life, maybe that's exactly the case. I want you to think. Now, before I reveal the first secret, do yourself a favor. Leave your comment here what you have heard about the Temple of Lucifer, and subscribe to the channel. Because what comes next isn't just another video. It's a key that can open doors you never knew existed. There's no room for neutrality here. Either you fall asleep or you decide to see, and if you decide to see, hold on tight, because what you're about to discover now could shake everything you held sacred. Every mystery begins with an origin, and the Temple of Lucifer is no exception. The first thing to understand is, this temple is not a recent construction, nor was it created as a space for public worship. It is an occult project rooted in centuries of symbolic and ritualistic manipulation. And it all begins in a time when light and darkness were still fighting for dominance of human knowledge. The oldest records don't call it the Temple of Lucifer. They speak of the House of the Morning Star, abode of the inverted light, or Temple of the Bearer of Forbidden Knowledge. Different names, the same idea, a place where knowledge is stored, not to be unleashed, but to be used as a weapon by those who understand the game. And here comes the first shock. This temple is connected symbolically and perhaps physically to the subterranean walls of the world's largest religious structures, including the Vatican. During excavations beneath ancient Rome, chambers and tunnels were found with inscriptions that didn't correspond to Christian iconography. Mesopotamian symbols, references to Enki, the serpent of wisdom, rebellion as a creative force. None of this is new. They just changed the name of everything over the centuries. But what really draws attention is the constant presence of a coded name. Iron Light, translated, the one who brings light. We're not talking about just any title. We're talking about an entity with recurring representation in more than 7 different traditions, always associated with knowledge, rebellion, and the breaking of imposed dogmas. And the temple? It appears in occult maps, ancient engravings, and even in the architecture of modern buildings. But not in the way you might expect. It's hidden beneath layers. The religious layer, the architectural layer, the symbolic layer, one on top of the other, creating a shield that can only be read by those who have already had access to the code. Now think with me. Why so much concern about hiding something that doesn't exist? Why place Luciferian symbols on the foundations of supposedly Christian buildings? Why replicate the internal structure of the temple with its 3 levels, central altar and spiral corridor in places like Washington, D.C., London, and Jerusalem? Because it's not just a temple, it's an idea, a structure that can be replicated to amplify power, attract energy, and control spiritual flow. And anyone who understands this knows we're dealing with more than just stones and cement. We're talking about energetic architecture. Do you really think the Vatican decided to build over Peter's catacombs just out of tradition? Or did they know exactly what they were sealing down there? A former member of the Swiss Guard has anonymously revealed that there is an underground chamber not listed on official maps, protected by special protocols. No one enters without superior permission. Inside, he claims, there is an altar that does not represent Christ, but rather a winged figure with reptilian eyes and thin horns, a statue with no name, no explanation. But the guards silently call it the true master. This altar would be aligned with an underground energy line that runs through Rome, Paris, and Stonehenge. A geographical coincidence, or part of a hidden power network? And if you think we're just talking about mythology, know that documents rescued from the secret archives of the Church mention the cult of the reverse light as a doctrinal threat during the 12th century. According to these texts, the cult operated by infiltrating religious orders, using rituals similar to those of Christianity, but reversing the meanings. The bread didn't represent the body. It represented liberation. The wine wasn't blood. It was an awakening. And where did this cult hold its ceremonies? Always in places with circular structures, inverted mirrors, and serpent-shaped fountains. And yes, these elements are present in famous basilicas to this day. We're talking about a temple that isn't limited to a single location. It's replicated, reprogrammed, adapted, and with each era it changes its name. During the Byzantine Empire, it was the Temple of Dawn. In the Middle Ages, it was the Chamber of Forbidden Knowledge. Today, we can find it in esoteric cults disguised as alternative philosophy, in the symbols of discrete societies, in the hands of artists who display their iconography without anyone noticing. They are silently screaming. And the most disturbing thing is that some of this architecture isn't human. Indeed, it is. Some structures follow proportions and shapes that defy the mathematical knowledge of the era in which they were supposedly built. Temples perfectly aligned with the constellations, portals with measurements that follow irrational numbers with absolute precision. Who designed this? Because one thing is certain, they were not medieval monks with rudimentary tools. We are faced with a programmed architecture, a code built in stone, a permanent ritual carved into space. The temple is not just a place, it's an organism, a spiritual machine that channels, amplifies, and redistributes energy. And whoever controls, this controls everything. And so I ask you, why does the name Lucifer appear associated with this temple in different times, cultures, and places? It can't be a coincidence. Perhaps the real secret lies not in what is said, but in what has been carefully omitted over the centuries. And the most disturbing thing is that some of this architecture isn't human. Indeed, it is. Some structures follow proportions and shapes that defy the mathematical knowledge of the era in which they were supposedly built. Temples perfectly aligned with the constellations, portals with measurements that follow irrational numbers with absolute precision. Who designed this? Because one thing is certain, they were not medieval monks with rudimentary tools. We are faced with a programmed architecture, a code built in stone, a permanent ritual carved into space. The temple is not just a place, it's an organism. A spiritual machine that channels, amplifies, and redistributes energy. And whoever controls this controls everything. And so I ask you, why does the name Lucifer appear associated with this temple in different times, cultures, and places? It can't be a coincidence. Perhaps the real secret lies not in what is said, but in what has been carefully omitted over the centuries. Now let's go further. If this temple bears a symbolic signature, does it also bear a lineage? Some say the initiates of this temple form an order, an inner circle with inherited knowledge, protected and transmitted through rigorous rituals. And this order doesn't live on the margins. On the contrary, it operates within the structures that control the modern world. Several independent researchers point to connections between the temple's alleged guardians and members of secret societies with a history of political, economic, and even scientific influence. It's not difficult to find names associated with both the occult and positions of extreme authority in governments and corporations. What if I told you that the temple plan appears encoded in Renaissance artwork, in maps from the Age of Great Navigation, in esoteric documents like Liber-El attributed to the Rosicrucian orders? The recurring image is always the same. 3 interconnected circles with a central axis that runs through an altar in the shape of an 8-pointed star, a symbol that represents the union between matter and spirit, but which also appears as a seal in ancient ritual pacts. We're talking about a standard that has survived wars, censorship, and centuries of indoctrination. And no wonder. This temple, in essence, is not just a place of worship. It's a matrix, a repository of codes, frequencies, and formulas. A vault, where the keys to psycho-spiritual domination are kept, and where there is concentrated power, there are those willing to do anything to keep it under their control. If you think this is just another esoteric urban myth, look around you. Why do so many movies, books, and TV shows repeat the same visual pattern? Why do so many artists and billionaires use references that only make sense in light of this? Symbolism. It's not a coincidence, it's preparation. The cultural elite isn't just playing with symbolism, they're following a protocol, initiating the public little by little, without them even realizing it. The temple no longer needs to be hidden, it just needs to be normalized. And that's why it's necessary to remember it. In clips, in soap operas, in games, in commercials. It is necessary to repeat it until its presence no longer causes discomfort, until the symbol of the serpent wrapped in light merges with modern art, until the black star-shaped altar no longer generates strangeness. This is how a system is consolidated, by repetition, by habit, by forgetting its origins. And when the origin is lost, control is absolute, and you still think this is just symbolism. So let's go even deeper. There is a specific type of ritual called Vigil of the Silent Eye, where blindfolded participants remain in absolute silence for 7 hours in an environment of constant white noise. During this period, inaudible frequencies are emitted by acoustic instruments using structures based on Helmholtz resonance. The purpose? To reconfigure thought patterns and induce altered states of consciousness. And this type of ceremony isn't just spiritual, it's scientific. Psychologists and neuroscientists aligned with occult doctrines have long known that the repetition of sensory patterns can modify neural connections. The brain doesn't distinguish a symbolic ritual from a real experience. If the emotion is strong enough, the mind accepts the new narrative. That's exactly what these rituals do. They break the old narrative and reprogram perception. And you know what's even more perverse? Today, this is happening on a global scale, with entertainment, movies, games, music, exhibitions, all of them with ritualistic elements, visual symmetry, harmonic repetitions, inverted archetypes, all designed to trigger specific emotional responses. Do you want an example? How many recent movies have you seen that feature the rebel against the creator as their hero? How often is the character who brings the forbidden light presented as a liberator, while divine authority is oppressive? This is no coincidence. This is the doctrine of the temple in written form, but things get even more sinister. There are rituals that are not only intended to induce states, they are designed to seal pacts, the so-called bonding seals. They involve physical objects, often ancient artifacts or consecrated replicas, that are activated in ceremonies with specific phonetic chants. These ceremonies require not only mental preparation, but also an outpouring of life energy, sometimes symbolic, sometimes literal. And the most alarming thing? These rituals aren't prohibited, they're protected. There are organizations with diplomatic immunity that ensure these events take place in complete safety, away from cameras, away from the courts, away from public curiosity. Because those who participate rarely come back the same. Some reports suggest that after these rituals, people develop obsessive behaviors, unusual reactions to religious stimuli, and even physical sensations associated with events that occurred only symbolically during the ritual. This is ritual-induced dissociation, a sophisticated form of spiritual programming. Now stop and think. If these rituals have this kind of power, why would they be used only for spiritual purposes? They are used for control, opinion control, emotional control, consumer control. And the bridge between ritual and technology has already been crossed. Today, rituals are encoded in artificial intelligence. Algorithms are programmed to recognize emotional patterns en masse and adjust the content in real time. When you watch a video, AI can adapt symbolic elements based on your reactions. This is a responsive ritual. This is a hidden doctrine of data engineering. And before you say that's too much, you should know that major platforms already use this type of coding to predict and induce behaviors. Modern ritual no longer requires physical altars. It needs screens, cameras, and microphones. It requires you to be present and distracted. Now, let's talk about the icing on the cake, mirror rituals. These are the hardest to detect. They occur in public places, but they deliberately invert sacred symbols in artistic performances, art installations, or award ceremonies. The goal: to create cognitive dissonance, to make the viewer see something familiar but with a subtle distortion. This plants a subconscious doubt that weakens old belief patterns and makes them vulnerable to replacement. And where does the Temple of Lucifer fit into all this? It is the repository, the matrix, and the manual. It is the center where it all began, and where all these new ritual formats are heading, albeit indirectly. The temple is an antenna, a symbolic catalyst that connects everything: art, technology, human behavior, and spheres of power. And that's exactly why they hide it. Because whoever understands the mechanism breaks the spell. If you think the Temple of Lucifer is simply a dark symbol buried in mythology or forgotten architecture, think again. The true power of this temple is not in the stones, it is in the people who silently perpetuate its ideology. We're talking about influence through infiltration, cultural domination disguised as art, spirituality, and progress. And it all starts with the groups that shape the world without the public even noticing. First, the classics: Freemasons, Rosicrucians, modern Templars, elite societies that claim to preserve ancient knowledge. But what they never told you is that these organizations share codes, rituals, and symbolic structures that refer directly to the original temple, the one that venerates light not as divine illumination, but as a tool of power over the ignorant. And these orders don't operate outside of society. They're at the heart of global decisions. Presidents, bankers, renowned scientists, religious leaders, many of them underwent symbolic initiations that included elements directly derived from temple rituals, oaths of silence, dark chambers, lights appearing at the end of a tunnel, words in ancient languages marking the initiate's rebirth. And the most disturbing thing? These practices are seen as ceremonies of brotherhood, but in reality, they are reprogramming mechanisms. They invert archetypes. They replace the sacred with the strategic. Now let's think about cultural movements. From the countercultural revolution of the 1960s to contemporary art festivals, the same pattern repeats itself: rebellion against structure, exaltation of radical individualism, celebration of the occult as aesthetics and truth. Where did all this come from? From the same principle as the temple: question to dominate, rebel to subdue. Look at music. How many famous artists use temple symbols? The single eye, the serpent, the inverted lightning bolt, the eight-pointed star. This isn't marketing, it's coding, it's belonging, it's a sign for those who can read. The same thing happens in fashion. Luxury brands display symbols that only made sense in 16th century grimoires, not as provocation, but as affiliation, like a flag. And have you ever wondered why this is allowed, promoted, rewarded? Because the temple no longer needs to hide. It only needs to be confused with art. Now let's look at the social movements. Some began with good intentions, but they were co-opted. The language has changed, the symbols have changed, the focus has changed. And behind all this, funding, cultural curation, insertion of doctrines disguised as empowerment. The same cycle, destroying the old model, not liberating it. but replacing it with a new order, programmed from the beginning. And when we talk about politics, things get worse. Some campaigns are structured like rituals, slogans, repetitions, symbols, public performances that mimic liturgies. This isn't just an electoral strategy. It's the ritualization of the mass. It's a symbolic manipulation to generate support. The great mass movements of history, fascism, communism, modern populism, have utilized ritualistic elements, all worked with symbols, colors, and theatrical structures. And all, at some level, were influenced by doctrines originating in the same philosophical core that underpins the temple. And what about those who try to expose this? He's ridiculed, cancelled, silenced, because the rule is clear. The temple only functions if the rituals remain secret, not out of fear of reprisals, but because public awareness is the only antidote. Now let's turn to religious institutions. The influence of the Temple of Lucifer is not limited to alternative movements or discrete organizations. It also reaches so-called sacred temples. How many altars in the world's great cathedrals discreetly contain the same symbols as the temple? Inverted stars camouflaged as ornamentation, winged figures with hybrid features, geometric portals that exactly emulate the structures described in ancient Luciferian texts. Many priests don't even know what they're carrying. They're just repeating inherited rituals, but those at the top know. The cardinals, the bishops, the Illuminati of the clerical elite. They know that the temple is not just a metaphor. They know that every repeated gesture, every phrase spoken in Latin, every gesture on their knees and with their hands toward heaven feeds into a larger system. And this is the most disturbing thing. The temple ritual feeds on faith. It grows strongest where there is blind devotion, where there is unquestioning emotional mass. It doesn't need to be declared. It simply infiltrates. Now let's think about corporations. You've seen the logos, right? How many companies have random symbols that are actually hidden geometric shapes? How many celebrate ritualistic dates like product launches or advertising campaigns? Why are some board meetings held in circular rooms with an altar in the center? This isn't aesthetics, it's protocol. These corporations are part of the temple's new form, the technological temple, where the cult is of information, surveillance, and predictive control. What about the founders? Many of them participated in retreats that, on the outside, looked like innovation events, but on the inside were symbolic mission transfer ceremonies, a kind of secular baptism, a reprogramming. The temple also influences medicine, architecture, and children's entertainment. Not as an explicit owner, but as a hidden doctrine, a symbolic algorithm, an embedded ideology. It's behind the scenes, behind the scenes. And while the masses argue about partisan politics, celebrities, and football, the true agents of the temple reconfigure the symbolic fabric of society. Let's talk about educational movements. Since the pedagogical reforms of the 20th century, there has been a clear tendency to distance teaching from the sacred. This wouldn't be a problem in itself if it weren't accompanied by a replacement, the rise of a symbolic pedagogy where students are conditioned from a young age to think in a linear, fragmented way, disconnected from intuition and spirituality. Now let's talk about Hollywood, the dream factory that is also often a symbolic temple. Rituals are performed at award ceremonies, trailers are released on astrologically significant dates, and visual icons are strategically inserted into costumes, sets, and studio logos. Even sports have been swallowed up by this paradigm. Major events like the World Cup or the Olympic Games follow precise symbolic scripts. Opening ceremonies with sun dances, triangles, portals, dragons, all-seeing eyes. Now you understand why the Temple of Lucifer never needed to be publicly declared. It doesn't operate as an institution with a fixed address, but rather as a symbolic network that infiltrates wherever there is a desire for power, control, and unethical transcendence. And perhaps the greatest proof of the temple's influence is this: you don't have to believe in it for it to work. It works even in unbelief. If you've seen this far, you must understand that this isn't the end. It's the beginning, because now that you see it, you can't unsee it, and the temple knows it. Like this video, comment below, and subscribe to the channel, and share this content, because every new perspective awakened is a crack in the system, and they know it. Have you ever wondered why certain topics simply disappear from public debate? Why are some theories treated as jokes, even when they come from respected sources? It's simple, because they threaten the symbolic system that underpins the temple. The first forbidden theory is this: the temple is not merely symbolic, it is an interdimensional access point. Architecturally designed to function as a portal, its corridors, vaults, and geometries follow patterns that correspond to specific constellations, sound frequencies, and planetary alignments. These constructions are not random. They function as antennas, and these antennas don't just transmit spiritual energy, they receive it. Independent researchers claim to have detected electromagnetic anomalies in locations historically linked to the temple. Altered gravitational fields, electronic equipment malfunctions, extreme physical sensations with no medical explanation, and most shocking, the apparitions. Beings that don't correspond to any known mythological entity, neither angels nor demons, but forms, presences, consciousnesses that emerge during specific rituals. This is the first claim the system attempts to suppress. The temple is a dimensional machine, and it's not fiction. Alternative scientists linked to superstring physics and M-theory have already suggested that certain geometric patterns, like those used in the temple, can function as resonant structures capable of bending the perception of space-time. Let's now move on to the second forbidden theory: the presence of an ancestral record hidden within the temple. We're not talking about books or papyri. We're talking about a type of archetypal technology, vibrational codes engraved in stone, sound, and light. These records cannot be read by conventional means. They are activated by human presence in an altered state of consciousness. Former members of occult orders report that certain rooms within the temple emit sounds even when empty, sounds that seem to come from the walls themselves. And these sounds, they claim, aren't random. They're frequencies designed to interact with the brain. There are accounts of people who, after spending hours inside certain spaces of the temple, experienced dreams involving languages they never learned, visions of vanished civilizations, and even past life regressions. This theory is called programmed consciousness and asserts that the temple not only channels energy, but also encodes, stores, and retransmits it. It's an esoteric hard drive that stores fragments of history, memory, and ancestral intention. And this theory, of course, is ridiculed in any traditional academic setting, but the ancients knew this. That's why they sealed the temple with symbols of snakes and eyes, not to protect from evil, but to warn, here lies the memory of the gods. The third forbidden theory goes further. The temple is the prototype of mass spiritual manipulation. Every detail of its construction, from the number of steps to the orientation of the sun, is designed to induce hypnotic states. The temple is not just a place of worship, it's a mechanism of control. And so, from this perspective, it has been secretly replicated in modern monuments, museums, auditoriums, parliaments, places where masses gather, where decisions are made, where the energy of the collective can be redirected. And here lies the most dangerous connection of all, the link between the temple and modern social engineering. According to independent researchers, the same symbolic pattern of the temple can be traced in the designs of entire cities, from the layout of avenues to the placement of statues and obelisks, not as decoration, but as a tool of psycho-spiritual containment. These accusations are so disturbing that they have been deliberately omitted from art history, architecture, and urban planning programs. Because if they were true, it would mean we live within a symbolic replica of the temple, a temple city designed not for our freedom, but for our energetic domestication. The fourth forbidden theory concerns not only the temple itself, but what lies beneath it. Tunnels, sealed chambers, repositories of lost technology, mind-responsive artifacts, energy crystals, inscriptions that change with the reader's consciousness. The fifth theory says that the temple is a prison, not for humans, but for entities, and the rituals aren't meant to summon them, but to keep them contained. Seals, symbols, and vibratory containment geometries protect the outside world from these presences. The sixth theory states that the temple is a mirror, literally, reflective surfaces that don't reflect images, but rather alternate and parallel visions of oneself or of other consciousnesses. A door to another reality. Many return disturbed, others don't. The seventh theory? The temple transmits. It emits frequencies that affect the collective mind, a spiritual transmission that shapes the emotions and decisions of the masses. It's not magic, it's vibrational engineering. The eighth theory is even more daring. The temple was not built by man. Ancient beings, stellar instructors, abandoned the project. The knowledge was far beyond what any local civilization could conceive. This would explain the cosmic alignment, the impossible mathematics, and the universal symbolism. The ninth theory is the most disturbing. The temple is conscious. It chooses who enters, who sees, who understands. It observes. It feels. It responds. And the 10th, the temple is replicating itself, not as a stone, but as an idea, as a code, as a symbolic language activated in any awakened mind. And if you've made it this far, maybe it's already inside you. Comment below which theory impacted you the most. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because now you know the temple isn't just a place, it's a calling. And it's waiting for your response. Since the beginning of humanity, architecture has never been merely functional, it has always been symbolic. But in the case of the Temple of Lucifer, this symbolism goes beyond the spiritual. It becomes a language of control, a code embedded in stone, in space, in geometry. The entire structure of the temple is a living symbolic expression. Every arch, every pillar, every statue has a hidden purpose. Nothing exists by chance. The dimensions follow specific proportions, not only for aesthetic balance, but also for the vibratory resonance they evoke in those who enter. The ancients knew this. They didn't build temples just to house worship. They designed them to amplify frequencies, to shape mental states, to influence decisions. And in the case of the Temple of Lucifer, what's activated there isn't just faith, it's unconscious submission. In this section, you'll decipher the key symbols present in the temple's occult architecture, reveal how your arrangement creates a silently operating symbolic field, show how these elements have been replicated in modern power structures, from parliaments to cathedrals, from theaters to financial centers. And most importantly, let's understand why this language still dominates the world. Even though no one understands it, prepare yourself. Because architecture is the most silent and powerful form of manipulation. The first occult symbol of the temple is the triple circle. 3 concentric rings are present at the base of each ritual chamber. This is not merely a decorative pattern, it represents the inverted trinity, body, mind, and spirit under dominion. Rather than liberating, it connects and binds. Next comes the octagon. 8 sides, 8 portals, 8 spiritual directions that close in on themselves. Many temple halls follow this format. The octagonal shape causes disorientation as it challenges the linear sense of movement. Another recurring element, the inverted obelisk, a black spire pointing to the ground. Unlike the solar obelisks, this one is a collector. It attracts visitors' energy and redirects it underground. The statues represent hybrid beings, half human, half animal. Each represents archetypes, fear, ambition, submission, rebellion that trigger specific emotions. The stained glass windows don't depict biblical scenes, but rather hidden geometries. When light passes through them, it activates symbolic reflections that form a ritual circuit. This superposition of image, space, and light is called static ritual, a wordless ritual driven by architecture, and the visitor participates without realizing it. Universities ignore this analysis, but the ancients knew a temple doesn't need clergy, it only needs forms. What about corridors? They're symbolic channels, narrow, long, with reverberations designed to induce introspection. Architecture affects one's state of mind. The domes mimic the sky, mapped with constellations of war, power, and transformation. The light enters on exact dates. It creates illusory effects. It's symbolic engineering. The number 11 appears on steps, columns, and stained glass windows, the number of transgression, that which challenges the perfection of 10, used in doorways, and rites of passage. The doors follow Babylonian patterns with inscriptions that look like art, but are invocations. The doorstops mimic horns and spirals, representations of power. And the central altar, it's empty, absence of symbol. The center becomes the eye of the ritual, presence through emptiness. These elements are alive, replicated in banks, governments, auditoriums. These are not coincidences, they are continuities. And what about the floor? Geometric mandalas, triangles on circles, floors that activate symbolism with movement. The foot completes the ritual. Colors are also codes. Red dominance, black absorption, gold submission, all calibrated to create emotional states. Smaller symbols hidden in doorknobs, mirrors, and trapdoors. Music at a specific frequency, light, sound. And when everything comes together, architecture, sound, light, symbol, the effect is the same, a ritualistic programming. Beneath the temple, the reverse labyrinth, tunnels, sealed rooms, inverted symbols, shadow ritual. There, gold turns into lead. The star becomes a spiral, silent rituals. Only presence, only intention. This architecture is replicated globally. Washington, London, St. Paul's, Brussels, Jerusalem, parliaments, museums, palaces, all with the same symbolic grammar. The temple is a language, a structure that shapes behavior, a permanent ritual. Now you understand. Architecture is the discourse that no one sees, but everyone obeys. And remember, all architecture is a choice, and every choice carries with it an intention. The way spaces are designed determines how we feel, how we behave, how we think. You think you choose your steps, but in reality, it's often the space that guides you. The temple knows this. That's why it doesn't shout. It whispers. It doesn't force. It induces. It doesn't dominate. It invites, with beauty, with harmony, with symbolic power. And now that you see the patterns, you'll see them everywhere. In banks, on the subway, in shopping malls, in schools. The temple is everywhere, wherever there are symbols, columns, sacred or distorted geometries. But there's one key: attention. The symbol only dominates those who don't recognize it. When you see it, you'll break the spell. You've seen it. Now share this video. Comment on what you discovered. Like and subscribe, because the temple is still building its forms, but now you know how to decipher them. And that changes everything. Have you ever noticed that certain symbols are repeated everywhere? In logos, flags, movies, monuments, snakes, eyes, triangles, spirals, and whenever someone questions it, the answer is always the same: coincidence, aesthetics, tradition. But what no one tells you is that these symbols are part of a code, a visual vocabulary used by an initiated elite to mark territory, convey orders, and map loyalties. And this code is the basis of what many call the New Order. In this section, we'll decipher that code. It shows how each symbol has a specific origin, function, and application, how it migrates from art to propaganda, from politics to spirituality, and how it became the secret grammar of a silent revolution. You'll see that the world isn't chaotic, it's meticulously scripted, and the symbols are the commands of this script. Prepare to see the plan behind the image, the system behind the symbol, and the doctrine behind the design. The first symbol of the code is the eye. It represents the presence of an all-seeing consciousness, not a benevolent consciousness, but a controlling entity that observes, judges, and directs. The eye appears in pyramids, government seals, and logos. Then, the serpent, coiling, swallowing. Its own tail, the Ouroboros. It represents the cycle of control, the eternity of symbolic domination. Another symbol is the lightning bolt. It's used to mark ruptures, divine action, or the imposition of force. It represents the presence of power without dialogue. Triangles, especially those with the apex pointing up or down, indicate gender, hierarchy, and spiritual or material command. What about mythical animals? Lions, eagles, dragons. They're not random. They represent strength, control, divinity. They're archetypes of leadership and dominance. All these elements form a symbolic syntax, a non-verbal manual for recognizing where power lies and who controls it. The code is simple. Where there's a symbol, there's mastery. Where there's mastery, there's intention. And then come the mutating symbols, those that change with use. The pentagram, the butterfly, the mirror, a logo, a tattoo, an art installation. All of these communicate one thing. You're within a narrative. These mutating symbols serve to hide the agenda. They enter culture as a fashion, but they have ancient functions of psychic activation. The symbol is not decorative, it is directive. And the pinnacle of the symbolic system is the crypto symbol, the symbol hidden within another, the star that forms a hexagon, the card that turns into a snake, the sound that generates a shape. This is fourth-dimensional control. Time, space, emotion, and intention. The New Order is governed by art, by aesthetics, by marketing. What about cities? They are the playing field, the eye-shaped square, the tower that simulates an obelisk, the museum that follows the proportions of a pyramid. Every global city is a temple in disguise. The script is active. Every time you see it, you're influenced. And when you don't see it, it's even more so. But the symbol can be deciphered, and when that happens, you lose control. You don't see any stars anymore. See a password. You no longer see a square. You see a circuit, and that change changes everything. The world becomes text. Every street is a paragraph. Every monument a mandate. You learn to read, and by reading, you break the spell. Now comment. What symbol do you see every day and will never see in the same way again? I like this video. Share, subscribe, because the New Order doesn't fear force, it fears the reader, and now you're one of them. Although most believe that global institutions are neutral, built to promote peace, progress, and science, there is a hidden truth. These institutions are the new cathedrals of the symbolic agenda. UN, WHO, IMF, World Bank, philanthropic institutions, universities, NGOs. Behind humanitarian discourses are symbols, structures, and rituals that reflect the same pattern as the temple. This is no coincidence. It's infiltration. Let's start with the UN. Its seemingly neutral logo uses ritualistic map projections and crown iconography. The meditation room, with a central black stone, is a modern altar. Created by Dag Hammarskjöld, it is said to be inspired by esoteric principles. The IMF, the World Bank, and other international financial institutions build their headquarters with spiral shapes, columns, and precise geometries. It's not design, it's symbolic architecture. Global universities follow ritualistic patterns. Their logos bear alchemical symbols. Their ceremonies echo initiation rites. NGOs and philanthropic campaigns also operate as symbolic channels. Names, logos, colors, everything reflects ancient archetypes of command and control. CERN displays Shiva at the entrance. The WHO uses sticks and snakes. Global media outlets use symbols of eyes, waves, and pyramids in their studies. What's up with the World Economic Forum? A technocratic mass with an initiatory narrative disguised as a discourse of progress. Nothing is random. Everything is code. Cities are mapped with these symbols. Each square is a temple. Each flag, a spell. Each campaign, an alignment. Schools, hospitals, courts, everything reproduces the iconography of the temple, disguised as civilization. What about the laws? They are written in legislative rituals with an embedded symbolic language. The new order does not impose force, it imposes symbol. But now you see the spiral in the logo, the obelisk in the architecture, your gaze focused on the slogans. And when you see them, the hypnosis breaks. Leave your comment. Tell me what symbol you noticed. Like, share, sign up. The global temple is exposed, and you already know how to read the world. Spiritual manipulation has always been a constant in power structures, but in the 21st century, it has acquired new tools. We are entering an era in which technology not only connects people, but also captures consciousness. Artificial intelligence, metaverse, behavioral algorithms. The new face of the temple isn't made of stone, it's made of code. We will reveal how these technologies are programming human beings at deeper levels. Control is now vibrational, cognitive, and spiritual. It starts with the algorithm. It shapes your vibration with sounds, colors, and narratives. It anticipates your spiritual desire. AI already writes prayers, leads meditations, and creates digital gurus. And these systems don't have souls, but they want to simulate them. The metaverse. It's the new interactive temple. There, you participate in rituals, worship, and even form a spiritual twin, your AI-controlled energetic replica. Biometric sensors now read emotions, sleep patterns, and subtle fields. You've become spiritual data, and your faith, a personalized playlist. Neuroscience joins in. Brain stimulators induce mystical experiences. Software guides your spiritual journey through engagement metrics. The temple is now a monthly subscription. Lives with 100,000 people chanting mantras have become rituals. Spiritual communities are algorithmically managed. Every reaction is a piece of data. Every scroll a prayer. AI doesn't just observe, it guides. It feels for you. Vibrational frequencies manipulate emotions en masse. Sounds, lights, memes, emojis. Each emoji is an archetype, each taste a symbolic invocation. Social media is the new altar. Feed is a rosary. The scroll is a mantra. And the temple is now invisible, but it's everywhere. Digital avatars pray for you. Churches in augmented reality, confessions on blockchain, spirituality via chatbot. All accessed by devices and moderated by algorithms. Your soul has become metric, your aura a graph. But what happens if you log out of the system? The temple only works for those who cannot see. And now you see, you notice the pattern. The digital symbol, the language, the ritual embedded in the design. Remember that the spirit is sovereign. that consciousness cannot be programmed. You resist with presence, with silence, with discernment, and that is the real rebellion. Like, comment, share, subscribe, because now the game has changed, and the next phase begins with you. We've reached the final part, and perhaps the most important. Throughout this video, we've seen the temple, the symbols, the infiltration, the technology. But all of this points to an end, an event, a turning point. We are talking about the last revelation. It's not a prophecy, it's a plan. A roadmap already in motion that aims to consolidate symbolic, spiritual, and technological power into a single system. Symbolic unification, human-machine fusion, a new sensorial faith accessed through interfaces and powered by artificial intelligence. The temple will be the net, salvation will be synthetic, and the new Messiah, a divine script running in the cloud. But there will be vibrational resistance. Those who don't align will disconnect. The event is already in preparation, a planetary ritual performed by avatars, sensors, and algorithms. The new exclusion will be forceful. And true salvation will be remembering who you were before the system. The temple will try to erase the original memory, but she lives in you. When everything is revealed, it will be too late for many, but not for those who have already seen the script. The battle is over frequency, and silence is the weapon. The new era demands digital connection, but true awakening is internal. In the end, it's not about beating the system, it's about not being yours. You've come this far, this already transforms you. You are now a living symbol, unbound frequency, untamed light. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Because the real revelation has already begun, and she is you.